paper, side quests are brilliant. On paper and on video, because this is YouTube. But what happens when that lovely optional adventure becomes a lot less lovely and quickly becomes no longer optional? We usually love the option to take a break from the main quest line, step into a little standalone mini-adventure, then step back onto the critical path with a renewed sense of purpose. That princess can hold off Ganon for an extra half an hour. I'm getting on the property ladder in Hyrule. Be forewarned, however, certain side quests are less like a fun distraction and more like a hostile takeover, kidnapping you out of the main game and locking you in until the quest is finished, whether you like it or not. Take these 7 examples of annoying, all-consuming side quests that unexpectedly locked you out of the main game, and beware spoilers for the following.
What can I do for you? Well met. Welcome to the Bloated Float. She's the finest inn on the water in all Cyrodiil.
The province of Cyrodiil is a vast landscape. Maybe not as vast as the world's in more recent games, but vast enough. Look, I'm not a land registrar. I don't know how big it is. I'm just setting the scene here. The point is, one of the joys of Oblivion is roaming around Cyrodiil, taking on side quests with gay abandon, happy in the knowledge that any time you want to get back to ending the apocalyptic threat of the Oblivion Gates, you can do it right away. But what happens when you're not in Cyrodiil anymore? You'll find out in An Unexpected Voyage, a side quest that you are involuntarily signed up for when you take a nap on the Bloated Float, an inn located inside a docked ship. Oh yeah, I can see why you'd want to stay here. Combines all the comfort of sleeping in a shed with all the seasickness of sleeping on a boat. When you wake up, you find that the Bloated Float has set sail, which no one mentioned when you checked in.
Hey, who in Oblivion are you?
You soon learn that the ship has been hijacked by the Blackwater Brigands, who you can probably tell from the name are a bunch of bloodthirsty pirates who get up to all kinds of water-based brigandry. In this case, the crime of Grand Theft Auto. Like water. Grand Theft Auto? Come back to me. You further discover that the wide open realm of Cyrodiil, with all its good times and heroic questing, is off limits to you, the hero who is stuck on a stolen ship. Extremely inconvenient when all you wanted to do was have a sleep in a floating hotel. Because you are, against your will, suddenly far out at sea, there's no way to disembark or fast travel back to land. You're stuck in a surprise mission to the exclusion of all others, in which you must free the ship's helmsman, or should I say Helm's Orc, and clear the deck of pirates, and free the ship's owner before you can set sail back to dry land.
Oh, thank goodness. That horrid woman kept threatening me.
Of course, you can't jump in a rowboat and make for the shore. You're doing this quest whether you like it or not, and since it's a fairly dull slog through a ship interior, confronting a series of pirate jerks, chances are you won't. So just like that 3-week cruise I was forced to go on a few years ago, you're stuck on the boat until the whole sorry ordeal is over. And at least that one had a swim-up bar.
Dark Souls is a tricky little sod at the best of times, so imagine how much more frustrating it would be if it threw you into a particularly difficult bit and didn't let you leave until you'd finished it. I mean, I say imagine, but it happened, so there's no need. I'll just tell you about it. While strutting around the sun-setting splendour of Anor Londo, you may come across a giant painting on the bottom floor of the chapel. If you happen to own a peculiar doll, by which I mean the in-game item, not that time they made X-Files Barbies, you'll be able to enter the painting. This whisks you away to the painted world of Ariamis, a difficult area filled with enemies who can do a lot of damage. It is Dark Souls after all. Enemies who can do a lot of damage was apparently the working title for the game. If you were hoping the painted world would provide some respite from Dark Souls' usual full-on slogfest, I hope you're sitting down because I have some bad news. Not only is it a miserable snowy landscape and you're trapped in there once you enter, you're also forced to take on some truly grim baddies like the engorged hollows, which look like a doctor's model of a diseased stomach, but with arms and legs sticking out. At one point, there's also a grotesque undead dragon rotting and missing its eyes on a bridge. When you interrupt it, it starts pulling itself forwards, tearing itself in half and leaving its back half behind. A disgusting thing to come across, but if I'm being honest, it gave me a good idea for a pantomime horse costume. What's particularly annoying about the painted world is that Dark Souls may not be an easy game at the best of times, but it's also not usually a completely linear one. It may have a basic structure with major areas you visit in a set order, but if there's an area you're stuck on, you can go away, make progress elsewhere, and come back. That's what makes the fact that you're stuck in this painted world and forced to travel through it even more frustrating. Once you come to terms with this and finally make your way through this very difficult and suddenly mandatory area, you reach its ruler crossbreed Priscilla, who can turn invisible, swing a huge scythe at you, and looks like a deadly Christmas tree topper.
Who art thou? One of us thou art not.
At this point, From Software maybe realised you'd already been through enough hell in the painted world, so in a rare moment of mercy, when you reach Priscilla, you can choose not to fight her. You can just walk past her back to the chapel and yeet yourself off a bridge to finally get home. And maybe next time you see a giant painting, you'll think twice before jumping into it. I mean, you should do that anyway, unless you want a 10-year ban from the National Gallery. 2032, baby!
Final Fantasy VII's ninja thief Yuffie may have been the star of her own DLC in the remake, but in the original game she was an optional party member you didn't even have to recruit. So she's done well for herself. In the original game, if Yuffie joins your party, once you acquire the tiny Bronco plane, she'll suggest that you should fly to her hometown of Wutai. And why wouldn't you? With rocky mountains in the south and lush forestry in the north, it makes the Amazon rainforest look like an Amazon warehouse. Should you decide to head to Wutai, you'll trigger a side quest called Homecoming of a Miserable Daughter, which won Most Depressing Quest name in the award ceremony I just made up in my head. While exploring the mountains in Wutai, you'll get into a fight with some Shinra soldiers, and Yuffie will run off during the scuffle, nicking up to 48 of your materia in the process. You're now stuck on Wutai until you get all that materia back, because Cloud will refuse to get onto the plane until it's all accounted for. The first obvious problem with this side quest is that because materia is the main source of magic in the game, you can't cast any spells, meaning you're stuck with normal attacks, items, and the occasional limit break. First, you need to actually find Yuffie, but when you get to her village, the whole thing becomes a very annoying game of hide and seek, where each time you find her, she'll run off again. Yuffie even tricks you into trapping yourself in a big cage at one point, and eventually you're forced to chase her all the way back up the mountains again. And just when your patience is right at breaking point, you'll end up facing Raps, a giant dragon boss with a special move that can do up to 1,500 damage. And remember, you still can't cast any spells here. Beat Raps and Yuffie will give you back all your materia, and as a final little inconvenience, she'll just chuck them back to your party members in any old random order, instead of however you'd assigned them before, meaning you have to reorganize it all yourself. Yeah, thanks Final Fantasy VII. And by the way, it's material. There's an L on the end.
You've heard of the Sierra Madre Casino. We all have. The legend, the curses, foolishness about it lying in the middle of the city of the dead, buried beneath a blood-red cloud. A bright, shining monument luring treasure hunters to their doom.
What is story DLC if not just a big side quest you pay for? Sure, it costs money, but what doesn't these days? Did you know they charge you for water now? Water! That keeps you alive! When Fallout New Vegas got its first DLC add-on, Dead Money, it added a bunker to the east of the map, which took players to an entirely new standalone area, the Sierra Madre Casino and Resort. The Sierra Madre was going to be the most spectacular casino in America until the bombs fell on the night of its opening party, at which point everyone was trapped inside with a bunch of murderous security holograms. Bad timing really, you just can't plan for these things. Your goal is to find and break into the Sierra Madre Casino Money Vault over the course of 12 quests, find out what happened inside, and claim a whole bunch of new rewards in the process. The problem is, once you get there, you can say goodbye to the wide open explorable wasteland you know and love, because on arrival at the casino, you're gassed unconscious and wake up with a collar around your neck. And not a fun decorative one, but an explosive collar that will blow your head off Battle Royale style if you leave the area.
Play stupid, play clever. Make the mistake of saying no. That collar on your neck will go off and take your head with it.
That's a real headache. Both literally and figuratively. So your only way out is through, meaning you need to take care of the whole Sierra Madre business before you're allowed to go and play outside. This means taking orders from a sinister holographic projection of an elder called Father Elijah, recruiting and handling 3 other people for him, and triggering the gala event, which was supposed to mark the opening of the casino before it all went wrong. And that's all before you get into the vault and deal with Elijah. The whole thing is a lengthy slog trapped in a single location. All this would have been well and good if everyone loved Dead Money, but it was quite buggy at launch, and the fact that it's mostly one big repetitive fetch quest meant not everyone got along with it, meaning they were stuck with doing 4 to 5 hours of missions they didn't enjoy before they could leave and go about their New Vegas business. Time to go back to the Strip, where the casinos treat you with dignity. Except for that one full of cannibals, or the one full of gangsters, or the one full of killer robots. Alright, it's bad everywhere.
Megan. No Megan here, I'm afraid. Though I admit I'm curious who she might be.
Sometimes something that's good when it's optional is less good when it's mandatory. It's the difference between a walking tour of Alcatraz and being imprisoned in Alcatraz. One of the most important things in Deus Ex Human Revolution is the hero Adam Jensen's augmentations, which are added over the course of the game and give him new abilities. It's a bit like me adding new apps to my smartwatch, except instead of adding the ability to pay for sandwiches with my wrist, he gets a radar put in his eye. Swings and roundabouts, really. The Missing Link was a DLC side quest created for Human Revolution, offering an optional story which explained what happened to Jensen in the 3 days between him stowing away on a cargo ship in a cryogenic pod to escape some enemies, and him emerging from the pod a few days later at a secret Singapore base. It turns out that while on the cargo ship, Jensen was taken out of the pod and tortured a bit while being strapped to an electromagnetic chair that wipes all his augmentations, meaning he loses all of those snazzy powers, as well as his shirt.
Don't know what you're talking about.
So you have to recover his augmentations and rebuild Jensen's cyber powers from scratch.
Damn it.
It's like that bit in The $6 Million Man, or some other reference that you're more likely to get if you're under the age of 50. After a 4-hour quest in which Jensen escapes, leaves the boat and fights his way through an oil rig, he eventually gets into another cryogenic pod and is airlifted back to the original ship as if nothing had ever happened. As a standalone side story, The Missing Link isn't that bothersome. It offers some extra lore, and by removing Jensen's abilities and making the player reassign their skill points again, it gives them a reason to play with a different set of abilities than what they were used to in the main game. The problem came when Human Revolution got a director's cut, which forcibly added the DLC into the main story at the point where it occurs in the timeline, turning what used to be an optional side quest into a non-optional main quest. To make things worse, it gets foisted on you right before the game's climax, interrupting the momentum with no way to skip it to get back to the main story. Alright, look, imagine if, in the special edition of Star Wars, George Lucas added a scene where Luke Skywalker was about to jump in his X-Wing and destroy the Death Star, and then he realises he was out of fuel, and so he had to take a 4-hour round trip to another planet to go and fuel up the X-Wing, and then he could fly back just in time for the final 10 minutes of Star Wars. Actually, can we check he didn't do that? Because I wouldn't put it past him.
I assure you, Skellige is just as strong as the other factions. It shall soon be considered canon. Of this I'm certain.
I don't know. Always been a Nilfgaard man myself. I must give it some more thought.
The Witcher 3's card game Gwent splits opinion. Some think it's a brilliant diversion from Geralt's usual shenanigans, while others don't think a game about slaying monsters should be broken up with a parlour game. It isn't Gwent itself that makes this particular example so annoying, though. Even if you're a big Gwent fan, one side quest in The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine takes things a bit too far. The quest is called To Everything Turn Turn Tournament, which is a weak pun based on a 60s song by the Byrds. Suddenly that $6 Million Man reference feels cutting edge. Count Monnier has decided to hold a Gwent tournament, and he's even added his own new expansion deck based on Skellige's clans.
Our tourney's more than mere diversion. We've a mission, see? To spread word of my brother's brainchild, Skellige, a new Gwent faction.
Before you can even start the side quest, you need to head off and collect enough Skellige cards to compete in the tournament. Here's the thing though, once you manage this and enter the tourney, you're locked in for the duration. Even though there are 4 rounds, if you lose in the first round, you have to stick around for the other 3.
Congratulations. Lucky I didn't bed my sword.
To make matters worse, halfway through the tournament, a group of disgruntled dwarves will turn up, protesting against the new deck and arguing that you shouldn't mess with the original.
Stop your mum from f***ing ferrets, Monnier, and hands off our Gwent!
Lads, I was there when Pokemon TCG got the Emerging Powers expansion, so I feel your pain. This kicks off a fight where you have to scrap with 3 dwarves in a tiny room. They're all armed with clubs and you've only got your fists, making it a really frustrating fight. When The Witcher 3 got its next-gen expansion, this mission was patched so you could use your sword, but for early adopters of the DLC, the damage was already done to their controllers. Obviously, this mission is already a nightmare for anyone who doesn't care for Gwent, but even those who enjoyed it were annoyed to be locked into an entire tournament with no way of leaving until it was done. Not to mention the matter of a dwarf riot in the middle of proceedings. Yes, I did get the Emerging Powers expansion, but at what cost?
Where the hell are we?
We are on the island of Guarma. Javier asked a local. It's a old sugar plantation island. Second island east of Cuba.
Is it anywhere near Australia or Tahiti?
It's on the way, I guess.
One of the things people love most about Red Dead Redemption 2 is its stunning landscapes, with Rockstar creating its own incredible interpretation of the American Wild West at the turn of the 1900s. So what happens when all that is taken away from you without warning? That's what happens in the game's penultimate chapter, when Arthur and his gang mess up on an elaborate bank heist and decide to sneak on board a ship to hide from the law.
I got it. A boat.
What you mean?
We stay here till nightfall. Then we sneak on down to the docks. We get ourselves out of here.
When a storm sinks the ship, Arthur is washed ashore in Guarma, a Caribbean island with a completely different map and a new set of missions which take up a good chunk of the game's 5th chapter.
Quick! Hide.
Suddenly, your epic journey throughout the American West grinds to a halt as you play through this tropical diversion, with no way to get back to the mainland until you finish the tasks required of you.
Okay! Try again! We have to land more shots!
Guarma could have been so much better if many of the things you could do in the rest of the game carried over here. It would have been great to be able to go on special hunting challenges with the unique animals that are specific to Guarma, or even just explore the place like you can in the rest of what's otherwise an open world game. Instead, Guarma is a far more linear diversion from all the Wild West hijinks you were getting up to before, and any time you try to go off the beaten path, you'll be killed by an invisible sniper. This is even more annoying when you look at the map and realise that about a quarter of it can't be visited. as if Rockstar had bigger plans for it until those plans were shut down by someone. The Guarma Police, maybe. Like the Radiohead song. I deserve that. And although yes, Guarma is technically not a side quest, it has huge side quest energy. No one wants to be there, nothing interesting happens, and you're just spinning your wheels until everyone manages to get back to America so that the main story can actually continue. And worst of all, Micah spends most of it with his shirt open.
Whatever, Morgan.
Why, Rockstar? What did we ever do to you?
We survived. Just about.
So those were some of the side missions, and sometimes even a main mission, that pulled you out of the main world and didn't care that you were maybe in the middle of doing a bunch of collectibles. What the heck, game? You just stand there thinking like, I was doing something! Ah! Can you think of any examples? Let us know in the comments below.
I got locked in my friend Martin's toilet and had to climb out the window.
Okay.
Does that count?
Yeah? How did anyone else get back in? Did you have to go back in?
They were all in the garden and the lock wasn't working.
Aw. Was it a not flushing situation,
No,
an embarrassment?
just the lock.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you got an example in real life like Mike, let us know in the comments. And we've got some other videos that you can check out. And we don't lock you into one video at any time. You can go watch any of our videos at any time that you want. Aren't we so nice? We're not like these games. But we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.